Hey everyone, I'm Adam Haritan, and today I'm exploring the woods here in western Pennsylvania in search of one mushroom in particular. And that mushroom is one of my favorite mushrooms. It's one that's been a major part of my medicinal strategy for the past 7 years or so. And that mushroom is none other than Ganoderma TSUGAE, the Hemlock Reishi Mushroom. Today's the perfect day to look for this mushroom because it's late spring, early summer, and that's typically the time of year when you're looking for Ganoderma TSUGAE. And this year, 2017, has been such an incredible year already. And so I'm pretty sure I'm going to find it. I'm going to look around this area, notice where I am. I'm in a predominantly hemlock forested area, and those are the places where you really want to look. So in this video, we're going to look for this mushroom. We're going to talk about its identification. I'm going to teach you some tips on how to find this mushroom in the wild if you've never even discovered it before. And of course, we're going to talk about the medicinal benefits. So let's go see what we can find. Okay, so I found my first cluster of reishi mushrooms, a nice trio right here. Ganoderma TSUGAE and this fallen eastern hemlock tree right on this hillside. There's a couple other good spots around here as well. Now this is pretty closely related to Ganoderma lucidum, the reishi mushroom used in traditional Chinese medicine, the classic Ling Qi mushroom. Although some people are debating whether the true Ling Qi used in traditional Chinese medicine is Ganoderma lucidum, but for now most people are calling that one Ganoderma lucidum. This one is Ganoderma TSUGAE. TSUGAE comes from Tsuga canadensis, the eastern hemlock tree, the substrate on which this primarily grows. Now, the Ganoderma genus is a very large genus of mushrooms, and worldwide there are probably between 250 to 300 species. And the name Ganoderma literally means brightly colored skin, or bright skin. So Ganos is Greek for brightness or sheen, and derma is skin. And not all reishi mushrooms, or not all Ganoderma mushrooms I should say, have a brightly colored cap. You can typically split the Ganoderma genus into two groups, the laccate mushrooms and the non-laccate. Laccate means has like a waxy coating on the top. This one would be laccate. Then there's a non-laccate species, like the Ganoderma applanatum complex. If you find the artist conch mushrooms, they're not really waxy on top. Now this particular one, Ganoderma TSUGAE, is a classic white rot mushroom, meaning it's helping to break down the lignin in this eastern hemlock tree. And it's a selective lignin degrader, meaning that it primarily just degrades lignin. It also degrades hemicellulose to some degree, but not really much cellulose. All three of these are plant cell wall compounds. If you look in field guides, sometimes you'll see that mushrooms are brown rot fungi. Those ones primarily degrade the cellulose and leave behind the lignin. This one's a classic white rot mushroom, and the fact that it breaks down the lignin and leaves behind a lot of the cellulose. So now that we know about the role of this mushroom, let's talk about some proper identifying features of this so that you can positively identify this in the field. The most distinctive feature for Ganoderma TSUGAE, and we already mentioned this, is probably the varnish appearance of its cap, this lacquered, waxy coating on its cap. If you're looking through a hemlock forest in May, June, July, and you find a mushroom that's grown from an eastern hemlock tree that looks like this, has this waxy coating, it's probably Ganoderma TSUGAE. Now at first this mushroom has a whitish, dough-like margin, and as you move towards the center, it turns yellowish, orangish, reddish as well. And then as this mushroom matures, the top turns almost completely red. And this mushroom attaches to the substrate, to the eastern hemlock tree, through a stalk. So you're going to see a little stalk. Sometimes it's very small, sometimes it's very large. And these mushrooms right here, you can see that there's definitely some substance to these stalks. Now this mushroom actually used to be placed in the Polyporus genus. If you're in a taxonomy, it actually also used to be placed in the Fomes genus. Now it's in the Ganoderma genus. But Polyporus, because if you look at the underside, it's covered with thousands of tiny microscopic pores. This is a polypore mushroom. It does not contain gills on the underside. At first these pores are white, then they turn brownish, and it bruises slightly brown, and this deposits a brown spore print. The sizes of this mushroom can vary dramatically. You'll find some that are very small, especially early in the season. You will find specimens that are over 12 inches in width. But generally speaking, I'm seeing them kind of look like this. You know, this one's probably 6 inches to 8 inches across. This one's a little smaller right here. But as you move through the forest, sizes are definitely going to vary. So let's talk about some tips on how to find Ganoderma TSUGAE. Because now that you know what it looks like, well, how do we get out there? How do we even know what eastern hemlock trees look like? How do we know where these forests exist? So of course, one of the key features for finding Ganoderma TSUGAE is to look in eastern hemlock forest. So this mushroom primarily grows in the eastern United States and eastern North America. If you're living anywhere outside of that range, you're probably not going to find Ganoderma TSUGAE, but you might find other reishi mushrooms in the Ganoderma genus. But their substrates are going to vary. Probably not going to grow on eastern hemlock trees, but Ganoderma TSUGAE almost always does. Now Ganoderma TSUGAE doesn't always grow on eastern hemlock trees. It can grow on some hardwoods, and it can grow on birch trees, for example, and I've seen it grow on birch trees, and I believe I've even seen it growing on a beech tree. But it's not exclusive to Ganoderma TSUGAE, but I'd say, you know, over 98 to 99% of the time, you're finding it on eastern hemlock tree. So eastern hemlock tree, TSUGAE canadensis, this is our state tree here in Pennsylvania. This is a conifer tree. It's an evergreen tree that retains its leaves in the wintertime. So you can identify it all year round with ease because you will see its leaves. Now its leaves are more like leaves than needles. And typically when you think of something in the Pinus genus, like a pine tree, eastern white pine tree, you typically think of the needles that are pointed at the end. Not really so with eastern hemlock trees. Their leaves or needles are flattened. And on the underside, you will see two silver strips. These are the stomata of the leaves. So flattened leaves, and you will see stomata on the underside, these two silver strips. Now, when you're looking in eastern hemlock forest, you're also going to find other companion plants around. Don't just look for the eastern hemlock trees, look for other plants around as well. That'll signify that you're in an area near eastern hemlock trees. Typically, I'm seeing a lot of birch trees. I'm seeing yellow birch trees, Betula alleghaniensis, and I'm also seeing black birch trees, Betula lenta. Whenever I look at the forest floor, I'm seeing plants like Canada mayflower, I'm seeing wild ginger, and I'm seeing Solomon seal as well. So all these plants, all these trees exist in a hemlock forest, especially the ones here in Pennsylvania. So go to those areas and you will probably have a lot of luck finding Ganoderma TSUGAE, especially if you're looking in May, June, early July. Now there is a resurgence of this mushroom in the fall. I've seen it in October, I've even seen it in December, and I think I've seen it in January before. Fresh specimens as well. Maybe a tiny bit past their prime, but still harvestable. So it does have a resurgence, but this is an annual mushroom. So it only has a one season life cycle, then it's going to die back, and it's probably going to appear again the next year. Now, one of the things that I mentioned early on is that this degrades the lignin in eastern hemlock trees. So you're primarily going to find this on dead eastern hemlock trees. So look for the ones that have fallen down, look for the ones that are standing but that are dead. If you're finding nice, healthy, strong eastern hemlock trees, you're probably not going to find a lot of Ganoderma TSUGAE. But in any eastern hemlock forest, you're going to find the dead limbs, you're going to find the dead branches, you're going to find a lot of the logs that are on the forest floor. Look on those areas, especially the really mossy logs. Those are the ones that I tend to find a lot of Ganoderma TSUGAE on. It's not to say you won't ever find it on a living eastern hemlock tree. This mushroom is also reportedly parasitic, meaning it will invade living trees and help degrade some of the wood inside those trees. But for the most part, it's found on dead eastern hemlock trees, or the ones that are really on their way out. So what's so special about Ganoderma TSUGAE? We talked a lot about this mushroom, but we haven't discussed anything in regards to health. So there are 4 key areas where this mushroom really shines, especially when you look at the scientific literature. So all this is backed by the scientific research. 4 key areas include immune system health, cancer, allergies, and air pollution, believe it or not. So let's talk about immune system health. So Ganoderma TSUGAE contains compounds known as beta-glucans. These are polysaccharides that make up the cell walls of fungi. And so Ganoderma TSUGAE isn't the only mushroom that has beta-glucans, but it has a lot of beta-glucans that are pharmacologically active. And what they do is they act as immune system regulators. They can help to modulate your immune system. What this means is that they can stimulate the immune system, working with both the innate and the adaptive immune system, but they can also suppress the immune system to some degree. And this would be applicable for certain autoimmune conditions where inflammation is out of control. It can help to reduce inflammation associated with a lot of these autoimmune disorders. Now, as I said, Ganoderma TSUGAE isn't the only mushroom that contains these pharmacologically active beta-glucans. When we look at Trametes versicolor, the turkey tail fungus, whenever we look at chaga, shiitake, even dryad saddle, believe it or not, has these immune system regulators known as these beta-glucans that have been studied in the scientific literature. So immune system health with Ganoderma TSUGAE. The second key area is cancer, and various studies have looked at the anti-cancerous properties of Ganoderma TSUGAE, specifically against neuroblastoma, against breast cancer, liver cancer, and also colorectal cancer. In a particular study came out in 2015, put out in the International Journal of Medicinal Mushrooms, showing that hot water extracts from Ganoderma TSUGAE, so something that you can make at home very easily, essentially making a decoction or a tea out of Ganoderma TSUGAE. This hot water extraction had anti-cancerous properties against human leukemia cells, liver cancer cells, and also glioma cells. And glioma is a type of cancer that begins in the brain or spine. And the specific mechanism behind this anti-cancerous property was anti-proliferation, meaning these hot water extracts put a stop to the increase in number of these cancerous cells. The third key area is allergies. And a study put out in 2015 found that a triterpenoid extract, so not a hot water extract, but triterpenes or triterpenoids would be extracted in a non-polar solvent. So maybe ethanol would be an effective way to extract these triterpenoids. So a triterpenoid extract suppressed both histamine and also interleukin-4. Maybe you're familiar with at least one of those compounds. So histamine is associated with the allergenic response. It's released in our bodies, and it's responsible for the watery eyes, the runny nose, the sneezing, the itching. Many pharmaceutical drugs that are anti-allergenic on the market are antihistamines, and triterpenoid extract had antihistamine properties, but it also suppressed interleukin-4. Now, interleukin-4 is a compound that's absolutely essential for a healthy immune system. However, overproduction of it is associated with allergies. So anti-allergy potential with Ganoderma TSUGAE. And the fourth key area with Ganoderma TSUGAE in health would be protection against the damaging effects caused by air pollution. So air pollution, certainly no joke. 5.5 million people every single year die due to pollutants in our atmosphere. And whenever we breathe these air pollutants, oxidation in our bodies increases, DNA becomes damaged, fats, lipids become damaged, proteins become damaged, inflammatory molecules are released, and our own internal antioxidant defense system is suppressed. And researchers in 2016, so a very recent study, put out this study in the American Journal of Chinese Medicine showing that an extract of Ganoderma TSUGAE applied to cells prevented diesel exhaust particulate matter, so air pollutants essentially, from actually entering the cell. These air pollutants just accumulated on the surface of the cell and never went in. So if we extrapolate this to the macro level, to the human level, we could see that Ganoderma TSUGAE may prevent air pollutants from even getting into our circulatory system. And this is fantastic because if you live in an area with air pollutants, and I'm sure you do, unless we're living deep within a forest and we never venture out of that forest, we are going to be exposed to air pollutants to some degree. So perhaps by ingesting something like Ganoderma TSUGAE, we can protect our bodies from these damaging effects caused by all these air pollutants. So those aren't the only 4 areas where Ganoderma TSUGAE really shines. We see that there are other areas as well. There are lots of other studies, and I think as time goes on, we're going to see lots more research on Ganoderma TSUGAE, the Hemlock Reishi mushroom. If you don't live in an area where this grows, if you don't live primarily in eastern North America, that's okay. I'm sure you have another reishi mushroom where you live or another member of the Ganoderma genus, and I encourage you to get out there, learn a little bit about this mushroom, and see if you could bring this home and see what it may or may not be able to do for you. But if you do live in an area with Ganoderma TSUGAE, get out there right now. 2017 has been such an incredible year for this mushroom, and I'm looking forward to see if this is going to pop back up again in the fall in such great numbers like we're seeing right now. Overall, thank you for watching this video. I truly appreciate it as always. If you're on YouTube, feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I encourage you to follow me on social media. I put out a lot of other videos on Facebook, and I put a lot of photos on Instagram. You can follow me at LearnYourLand, and if you want to sign up for the email newsletter, there's a link down below in the notes. Thanks again for watching. Happy mushroom hunting.